What's up guys, and welcome to another Blender tutorial for the week. Today we're going to be making mountains. I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time, so let's go ahead and get started. If you haven't switched to Cycles Renderer, you should probably do that now. As well as these little arrow lines, you can probably get rid of those. Those just kind of get in the way. So anyways, we're going to start by deleting our cube and deleting the lamp. And let me turn on my screencast keys for you. There we go. Okay, so we're going to be using something called the landscape generator. I believe that's what it's called. If you don't have that active, you're going to have to go into File, User Preferences, and in the add-ons, let me see, landscape, landscape. Just go ahead and click that box and then save user settings, because now we're going to Shift A and add a landscape. You can see it already gives you basically mountains, which is kind of cool, but we're going to tweak it and mess with it just a little bit. So here we go. Over here in the toolbar, you should see the landscape settings. Now if you've tabbed into edit mode, or if you moved it around, or if you messed with this at all, you're not going to see this. You're going to have to delete it and re-add another landscape. So I guess the first thing that we want to do is change our mesh size. We'll come back to subdivisions later because it'll make our model changes really slow. So let's go ahead and up that. Let's go, 8's a little small. Let's go like 12. 12, let's try 14. 16? Ha, 16, there we go. Let's go 16 on the mesh size. And you can immediately tell that it squished everything really close together. So what we're going to do is right off the bat, go down here where it says plateau. You'll see 1.00. We're going to change that, and I'm just going to make it 5 because I think that'll be plenty. And nothing is going to change because what the plateau setting does is the higher your mountains get, if your plateau is set low, your mountains will squish into an invisible line and make a plateau. If the higher you have that, the higher you can make your mountains, and they'll come to a point at the tip. So let's go ahead and let's see, random size, let's go noise size, let's mess with that a little bit. Let's make it like a 1.8. Gives you decent mountains. We might come back and tweak that a little bit. We'll leave depth alone. Dimensions, let's see what dimensions is going to give us. That really doesn't do anything, so I'm going to leave that at 1. Okay, this lacunarity, something like that, basically shows you like how close together the mountains are going to be or how far apart they're going to be. So I'm going to leave it at about 2 because it gives me a decent distance in between the mountains. So now we're into the interesting stuff, the height of the mountains. So if we go ahead and drag this up, I have a slow computer, sorry guys. Okay, we're at 2. Let's go even higher. Let's go 3. Okay, 3 looks more realistic, I guess. So let's go with 3. And the offset will give us, I believe, different kind of shapes to our mountains. Ah, here we go. It's basically the distance between like the land and the mountains. It'll pull that land further up into the mountains. So I've put mine at 0.78. Actually, that looks pretty good, so I'm going to leave it about there. Sea level, I'm not going to worry about sea level. That'll just move our plane up and down a little bit. That's nothing that we can't do in post if we want to. So for the fall off, I'm going to go ahead and change my fall off to Y, and you'll see what that does is where it basically makes your mountain range go from left to right, or on the Y axis. It kind of continues the mountains that way, but not on the X axis. If we wanted to do X axis, we could do X axis. I don't know what the other types do. Huh. That's kind of cool. Anyways, I'm still going to stick with my Y axis. And it actually looks pretty decent right now, so I'm not going to do anything else to it. The only thing I want to do is I want to go back up here where it says subdivisions, and I'm going to make this something a little crazy. I'm going to make this 200 subdivisions. And it's going to take a minute. There we go. So now that we have 200 subdivisions, you can see it is a little bit crazy. So our noise size we probably need to bring back down. Let's maybe make that a 1.2, see what we get. Oh, okay, we need to move that up, not down. Let's maybe make that a 2.5. See what we get with that. Aha, there we go. Okay, that's looking a lot better. So now that we have our mountains pretty much done, let's go ahead and try to get our camera set up. So I'm going to hit 1 on my numpad to bring me to my front view. And somewhere right about here, I'm just going to hold Control-Alt-0 on the numpad. And that'll basically just pop my camera right where I want it. Let's see, let's grab it on the X just a bit, pull it this way, grab it on the Z a little bit, and then I'm going to grab it on the Y and pull it in so I get bigger mountains. Grab it on the Z, pull it somewhere right about in here maybe. Grab it on the Y just a bit back. Right in here. Okay. So this is going to be our basic camera setup, and if you want to mess around with the camera a little bit and change the focal length or anything like that, go ahead and feel free. I'm going to set mine down to 1280 by 720 just because my computer's not great, so I like to render these out just a little bit smaller than what people would normally render them. Anyways, I think we're ready to go on to the next step. So our next step is going to be painting. And you think, oh no, painting, I don't like painting, I'm not very artistic. That's okay, you really don't have to be. We're going to switch out camera view with our numpad 1, and we're going to go into our Vertex paint mode. And if you've never used this before, it basically just lets you paint directly on the object that you're working on. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a actually a lightish green color, somewhere kind of in the middle. We actually want our colors that we choose to be lighter than normal, and you'll see why here in a little bit. I'm going to click paint and set vertex colors, and you'll see that that makes everything green, which is what we want to start with. So now I'm going to go ahead and go with a light brown color, and I'm going to lower my brush size a bit, and I'm just going to start painting over some of these smaller mountaintops. It's really up to you, however you want to paint this. This is just a way that I have found that, I don't know, makes it look a little bit more realistic. And we'll go back and paint over some of this as well. So I'm going to make this nice brown color here. And paint across this one. Paint down it just a bit. And make sure you're looking at it from a couple different angles so that you're getting the full view, the full effect, to see what your mountains are really going to come out looking like. And I should say that you don't really have to worry about any part of this that's not going to be seen by the camera. So don't worry about like the whole backside of this. Just keep that green and just worry about the stuff that's going to be seen by the camera. So we're going to come up here, we're going to get into these crevasses. We're just going to paint around on the inside here. Try and get all these mountain tops back here. Grab this one, come into here, and we'll come around into here, and we'll paint around here. Now there might be an easier method to doing this, to getting the correct sort of mountain colors. This is just a way that I found that works really quite well, that works pretty decently at least. So if you have a better method, feel free to use it, or feel free to let me know about your better method, and maybe if it's good, I'll share it with people, or maybe I'll start using it. I don't know. But this is what I came up with when I was tinkering around. It's a method that I've used before and that I've kind of shown before in my beach scene tutorial. If you haven't seen that one yet. Okay, so we've got a decent mixture here. You get just a little bit more here, just a little bit more up here. Okay, so now I'm going to go with something, let's go actual pure white. I want pure white. Oops. Saturation. Nope. There we go. So now that I have my pure white, I'm going to go ahead and start painting mountain tops. Just the high peaks, the really, really tall ones. Try your best not to, oops, see, I made a mistake already. Try your best not to let this bleed all over the place and get all over parts of your mountain you don't want them on. We really want those peaks. We just want the really tall parts. So we're going to go in here and just make sure that this is looking real nice here. I'll even put a little bit of snow on the top of here. Get a little bit of there. Okay, get just a little bit up here in the front. Let it drizzle across the top here. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. So if I look from the top, you can see that this is like really pixelated. It's really not, it's kind of disgusting, I guess. It doesn't look good at all. Just finished painting a couple pieces here. Anyways, there's a pretty easy way to fix this. We just go into our paint menu and smooth vertex colors. Ta-da! And it makes it look nice again. It makes it look smooth. So now that we have that, and since we use brighter colors, we should be safe to go ahead and do paint dirty vertex colors. You'll immediately see everything gets really, really dark. See how that works? It gets really dark. This is what we want though. Now that we have the dirty vertex colors and we have basically the colors that we want to go back over the tips of our mountains with our white, our pure white. Now suppose you could just wait and do the tips of the mountains after you do the dirty vertex colors. But it's kind of nice sometimes when it looks a little patchy, when you don't completely cover all of the gray. We just want to kind of accentuate that white color on top. Okay, so now that we have that, what you want to do is you want to go over here to the Vertex Group tab, and you'll see down here in the Vertex Colors, there's a group called Col, C-O-L. That is the name of our Vertex group, our Vertex color that we just created. If you want to rename it something else, feel free to do so. I'm going to leave mine at C-O-L. It's important to remember the name that you give this because we're going to have to use this in the node editor. Okay, so now that I have that, I'm going to go back to my object mode, and from the top view, no, I don't want to apply the scale, not this time. Make tab into edit mode, hit U, and I'm going to project from view. Okay, that went a lot faster than I thought it was going to. It usually takes a long time. Anyways, now that we have this unwrapped, let's go ahead and go to our material tab. Oops, let's go ahead and add a new material. I'm just going to call this mountain. And let's go to our compositor, because this is where the real magic happens. So, first thing we want to do is add an input attribute node. This is where we're going to type in the name of our vertex color, C-O-L. Make sure you type it in with the exact letters. Make sure that the C is capitalized because the C is capitalized here. If you type it wrong, if you don't type it with the right case for the letters, it's not going to work. So I'm just going to take that, plug the color of that right into the diffuse shader. Now, a little problem with this. If I hit rendered view, actually no, rendered view works. If I hit material view, all I get is a big black mountain. There's nothing there. This is because for some reason it doesn't want to like save the vertex color image, so it doesn't want to show through in your materials. However, it will show through in your rendered view. So if you want to switch to rendered view, obviously we haven't added a lamp yet. Actually, we should probably do that. Let me go back to my default. And I'm gonna go ahead and remove this mountain texture, just because I'm gonna mess with some shadows. We can always go back and re-add it later. Let's go ahead and Shift A, and let's add lamp, sun lamp. I'm gonna grab it somewhere over here next to my camera. Yes. something like that. We'll probably have to mess with it, but that's okay. Okay, so in my side view, I'll just rotate that up. I'm going to grab that on the Z-axis. Let's rotate that down. And we'll rotate it to the side. Actually, it might look better if I drag it back this way a bit. Do that. Aha. And for our sun lamp, we want some harsher shadows. So right here where it has like the, if you hover over it, it says it's the light size. That's what we're looking for. We're going to lower this down. I think 2 is what I went with. Oop, 2 centimeters, not 2 meters. And I think that's about it. Let's go ahead and turn the strength of that up to 2. That might be too much. We'll have to see. And I'm going to go ahead and turn this to just a little bit of an orangish yellow color. Just a little bit. And let's go into our rendered view. Aha! You can see we have some very nice shadows. This is great. I actually really like these shadows. I've never had them turn out this well from the very first get-go. Let's see. Maybe if I smooth it out just a tad bit. Smooth those shadows. Yeah, there we go. I'll put it at 4 centimeters for the size. 2 is for my strength. Beautiful. Love it. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my solid view. I'm going to click on my mountains again. If you click this little drop-down box, you'll see our mountain material is still there. We'll just add that back in there. So now, if we go to our rendered view, we should be able to see. Ta-da! Now you're thinking, oh, this is great for like a cartoon scene. That's true. We're going to have to do some things to make it look better. So let's go ahead and get started messing with that a little bit. Let me go back to my solid view, into my compositor. And the first thing we want to do is add a image texture. I'm going to open Nope. I'm going to open a normal map, and I'll show you what the normal map looks like. Okay, that is ridiculously hard to see. Let me open up the original for this so you can get an idea of what it looks like. Okay, so this is the original image right here. It's basically just a picture of some cliffs. If you find any kind of hard rocky surface, that will do just fine. Also, we're using the normal map, not the actual color. We might add the color later, but sometimes we don't need it. So anyways, we want the normal map. If you don't know what a normal map is, Google it. I've explained it quite a few times in videos before, but there's a program called Crazy Bump that will convert images like this into normal maps, specularity maps, diffuse maps, all sorts of cool stuff. If you don't have that, you should probably think about getting it if you're serious about doing CG work. Anyways, let's go ahead and add a vector normal map. Plop that in there, and I'm actually going to go to my material view here because it's bogging my computer down a bit. Connect the color up to that, and the normal up to the diffuse shader. And this little drop down that says color, I want non-color data. Alrighty. So now that we have that, let me go into my rendered view again, see what we're looking like. Okay, not bad. The rocks look a little big. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and add a vector mapping node. And then a input texture, not attribute, get out of there. Input texture coordinate. I'm going to drag the UV into the vector for that, and the vector for that into my normal map image texture. And let's make it like 3s down the line. That was a little better. Let's bring it up a lot more, 6. 6 might be too small. No, 6 is about right. Let's go with 6. You might have to mess with yours a little bit depending on the image that you use. So don't be afraid to play around with those numbers until you get something that looks relatively decent. Which, by the way, you can get this image texture straight off of cgtextures.com for free. Just look up cliffs. And anyways, let's go and add our glossy shader. And I want the roughness to be 0.45. And now it's time to add our mix shader. Mix that up. And then we'll drag our normal map into the normal of the glossy shader. And you can see our mountains have gotten crazy. So, what we need now, I'm going to duplicate my image texture. And open up a new image texture, which is going to be the specularity map of our rocks. And then add a converter color ramp. And plug it in here. Plug that into our factor. And you can see that it makes it a decent bit better, but it's not perfect. So we want to click on this white zone here, this white color. And we're just going to lower that down. Something around in here. That actually looks pretty good. Let me put the vector in here, see if that messes with things. Ugh, little bit. I'm going to maybe leave the vector off. Yeah, alright, that looks okay. So I guess the last thing I'm going to do is I am going to mix this color. I didn't think I was going to have to, but I guess I will. So Shift D for my image texture. And I already have my original image loaded, so I'm going to go ahead and plop that in here. Boop. And add color mix RGB. I'm going to mix that with this. And you can see that we're getting quite a bit of brown color. So let's turn that factor down. Maybe it'd be better as like a multiply. No, that's still too much. Screen. No, that's not enough. Overlay. No, that's not enough. Maybe a burn. That darkens things. No, that's bad. Alright, I'm just going to leave it as a mixture. Let's try like a 0.5. Whoa, not 0.5, 0.05. It's looking better. Not 0.2, 0.02. 0.02. Alright, that's looking pretty good. So, I guess we could just leave it like this and take a picture of our mountains and add a background or something. But that's not that great of a tutorial, so let's go ahead and go back to our default. And we're going to move to layer 2, so not on the numpad, on the actual numerical, whatever you call it, keys, the number keys above your letter keys. Hit the number 2, that'll take you to layer 2. I'm going to go to my top-down view. And this is another little handy trick, is if you go to File, User Preferences, there's one called Import Images as Planes. So if you type in your search bar just like images, it should pop up. Click the little checkbox, Save User Settings, and now we can Shift A, Mesh, Images as Planes. So let me go in here with my nature pictures. Let me find them here. Should I use pine trees for this one? Let's use pine trees. Sure. So this is a PNG image where the tree has been cut out from the background. There are no background images or anything. It's just this tree. And that's very, very important because of what we're going to do to it. So if I go to my materials, you can see it's all weird, like white and gray. It's because Blender doesn't really understand how to mess with transparency, I guess. anyways, let me tab into edit mode. I'm going to grab this on the y-axis, and I'm going to put my point of origin right at the base of the tree. Not at the base of the image, at the base of the tree. So this little yellow dot right in the middle there. If I move my 3D cursor, this little dot has to be right at the bottom middle of your tree for our particle system to work out properly. So I'll tab out of edit mode. And let's go ahead and set the material for this, which, if you look over here, when you import an image as plane, it automatically sets up a material. And I'll show you what that material looks like. Ta-da! Here it is. Image texture, diffuse into your output. That's very, very basic, and that's all we really need. We just need to add a shader transparent, and then add shader mix shader. We're going to plug the transparent into the top and the diffuse into the bottom. That's very important because now we're going to drag the alpha value of our image into the factor of the mix shader. And if I go to my material settings, go to 7, you can see it has gotten rid of the background and has left just the tree. If you don't have a transparent PNG, if it's a JPEG, or if the PNG has a background, this will do nothing. So if you're looking at your tree going, I don't understand, why isn't the background gone? Because you have to have an alpha mapped tree. The way I found these was just by going to Google and typing in alpha mapped trees. They're kind of difficult to find. For some reason, I don't know, people don't understand the terms that I'm using. I'm not sure, but you got to make sure that it has this transparent background or this is not going to work. So now that we have a tree and it is all ready to go, and we want to make sure that we didn't rotate it at all, so it's laying flat across the y and x axis here, that our point of origin is right at the base of the tree, because that's going to help with our particle system here in a minute. I'm going to go back to layer 1. And click on my mountain. And we're going to go to our particle systems. And let's go ahead and click new. We're going to change the type to hair. And we want to click that little advanced box. I think we're going to go with something like 10,000. That is 1,000, Casey, not 10,000. 10,000. Ta-da! So you can see we have a massive, massive, massive amount of hair. That's perfectly fine. I'm going to turn off even distribution and click random instead of jittered. And before I mess with anything else, I'm going to go down here to where it says render, click on object, and in the box with the little cube, I will see pine tree. Now why did it get named pine tree? I didn't name that pine tree. That's because when I added the image as planes, it automatically made the name from the picture title. That's pretty awesome, right? I didn't even have to rename anything. Okay, so this is going a little slow. Let me switch this back to solid view. That should speed it up a bit. Perhaps, maybe. Can I maybe turn this down just a bit? I'm at 100%. Let me go 50%. Okay, that sped me up a little bit. Let me go down to like 20%. Ah, that's better. Okay, so the trees are going to end up looking, I think they're going to be a little big right now. So let's turn them down by changing our emitter geometry. And you might have to tweak this a little bit depending on the size of your trees in your pictures. 0.5 looks about right for mine, so I'm going to go ahead and keep that. I think. No, I don't want that. Let's switch it back to 0. Okay, so for rotation, make sure you click rotation. And what we want to do, I think, do we want this on the object Z? Yeah. So if you click the object Z, it's going to make the tree stand straight up and down, which is exactly what we want. We don't want our trees poking sideways off our mountain. That's not how trees grow off of mountains anyways. So now that we have that, we want to mess with the phase. This is the top right in the rotation box. And this is another one that you're going to have to tweak just a little bit. It's going to be a little bit different than mine. You just want to turn that phase until your trees are basically all pointing straight at the camera. You don't want them turned sideways. And we're going to leave the random values alone because we want them to face the camera. I know they're going to look a little weird. That's perfectly fine. We just want them to face our camera. So now that we have that, I think we can turn on Brownian by 1. I don't know if it really makes a huge difference. We'll turn maybe a 0.5. Is that too much? Yeah. We'll turn the in the physics panel underneath the size. There's a random variation for size. I'm going to turn that to 0.5, so that'll give my trees a little bit of a differentiation in size. And I turned on Brownian. I don't know if you know what Brownian is. It basically just gives it like a random... Actually, you know what? I don't know what it does for images. Maybe it's size again. I don't know. For grass settings, Brownian just kind of like, I don't know, gives it a weird shape. It's like a noise or distortion. I turn it on for this. I don't know. If somebody knows what it does for images, let me know in the comments on it. You got me. Anyways, I think that that's pretty much it for that. There is, however, one thing that I forgot to do. So I'm going to click the little eye on my modifier for my particle system. That's going to turn my particle system off for right now because we need to weight paint. Ta-da! So since we have all of this stuff and we don't want trees all over everything, we're going to have to do some painting. So what I've done is I've selected my subtract brush. I'm going to turn my strength to 1 and I'm going to hit the F key, make my brush a little bigger, and I just want to paint. Oh, nope, wait a minute. Okay, actually this vertex group is already set to have no trees at all. Blue means no trees at all, red means trees. So we don't want subtract, we want our F brush. We want our strength probably still at 1. I'll lower my brush size a little bit though. And we just want to paint places where we want trees. So let me go down here. Maybe raise my brush size a bit. Right around here. Brush it around here. Around here. Just getting all these grassy areas. You can have them on the smaller mountains too. It's not a big deal. Trees grow on the little small hills and small mountains and stuff all the time. The main thing is we just don't want them like climbing too high up our mountains, and we don't want them at the very tips of the mountain for sure. So let's just do like this, do a little bit here, a little there, a little here. Maybe climb it up just a bit on that side of that one. Grab that one, come around to this one. Okie dokie, we're getting there. Hope you're hanging in with me, guys. I know there's a lot of painting in these, and quite frankly, I'm not a big fan of painting myself. I don't think that I'm all that artistic, and a lot of this kind of stuff is hard to teach in a tutorial. It's hard to be like, paint it this way or else. And I hate when people try to get you to do that. I'm telling you guys though, paint this however you want. If there's something you don't like, go back and change it. But it's not a huge deal. You can pretty much paint this however you would like. Just as long as you got it painted. Especially for these, this density. You can always just mess around with this later. Okay, that looks decent. Hopefully. Perhaps. Maybe. We'll see. Go back to my object mode. Turn my particles back on and go back to my particle tab, and right here where it says vertex group, drop that down, and in the density field I will click group. Ta-da! now I've only got trees growing where I painted red. So I don't have them on the tip top of my mountains where they shouldn't be. I just have them growing around this area. So let me see if I can show this in rendered view. Nope, it's not going to show my particles. Nope. Of course. No, it actually did. Sweet. Sometimes it doesn't. Maybe it's because I turned them off. Okay. That is not bad. Honestly thinking that the trees might need to be bigger though. So, let me go up here. Come on, buddy. I'm probably dropping frames like crazy. Anyways, I put 0.5. Let's go with like a 0.8. Boop, boop, boo. Aha! That's looking much better. Much, much better. Okay, so now that I have that tree, and we have that one pretty much solid. Ha ha ha, I'm going back to solid view. I made a pun. Okay, anyways, let's, I'm going to turn that one off. Click the little eye. And I'm going to rename this to Pine Tree. And maybe rename it up here too. Pine Tree. And back to my second layer, because now I'm going to add another tree. And images as planes, remember. What other trees I got in here? Another thing to note, I guess, about the trees is when you're looking for them, you want to make sure that the tree picture has the shading on the correct side. Since our sun is coming in from the right, our shadow is going to be on the left side of the tree. So I have a lot of these trees that have like a left side shadow, and that's what we're going to look for, because if you have your sun on the right side and your tree is really bright on the left side, it's not going to look right. It doesn't make a huge deal in these mountain scenes, but I don't know, people point it out sometimes. So let's see, let's go with something like this bush. Let's go with the bush. Okay, so let me go to my materials, tab into edit mode, drag that up to my origin point, I'll grab it back down here, and back to the compositor. And I think I'm going to mess with the colors of this one just a bit. So I'm going to add in a color hue saturation. I want to take some of the saturation out. It's a little too green for me. Ooh. That may have been just about right. Yeah. Okay, that worked. I don't know, just tweak these settings a little bit. You can't go wrong. Just mess with the colors. Just trying to get it to kind of match my pine tree a little bit. So let's go ahead and add a shader, mix shader, plop that in there, pull these out, and make sure we add our transparent shader. And remember, the transparent goes on the top and the diffuse in the bottom. Don't know why, but it took me a long time to remember that, because most of the time my diffuse goes on the top. And our alpha value for our image, bloop, right in the factor. And that is all set. Now I do want to show you a little trick that you could use. If you want some more random colors for your tree, go ahead and add a color mix RGB. Plug that. I didn't grab it. We'll plug our hue saturation into color 1. Plug the mix into the diffuse shader. Then I want to add a converter color ramp and plug that into the bottom of the mix shader. And I'm going to go ahead and add, what, 2 more lines, I think should do it. I'll just drag this out like that. And let's say I want like a nice array of kind of green, greenish blue kind of colors. A little more green than that. Darken that one up a bit. And I'll go ahead and copy that one and just make it darker. Something like that. And for the factor, we just want like a, I don't know, 0.1. Yeah, that'll work. So let's add an input object info node. And there's a little node down here at the bottom that says random. We're going to plug that into the factor of our color ramp. So now basically every instance of that object in our particle system will be given a different random value. So it'll be given basically kind of like a number between 1 and 4. Since we have 4 colors, it'll be given one of those numbers in which it will assign the color to that object. So each of our particles will have, I guess all of our particles for that bush will have these 4 different colors mixed in with it. It's just a quick way to get some blended colors, a little bit of variation in what we're doing. So default, and let's go back to our layer 1, back to our camera, click on our mountain, and we're going to add another particle system. And right here in our little drop down, we're going to select pine tree, and we're going to click that little 2. And that's going to let us mess with this just a little bit. It copied all the settings from our pine tree, which is great. However, we want to change our seed. This is going to give our particles different places that they spawn in, different position that they're in from our pine tree. Now we're going to go down, go back into solid view. This is slowing me down. There we go. So if I go back down here to our vertex groups, we're going to reselect our group. And if you need to tweak any of the other settings, like say this, you want this bush to be a little bit smaller, you can always go and do that. I think I will, maybe a 0.7. Okay, so if I turn both of these on, go to my rendered view, we can see what we're looking at. Okay, that is looking very nice. That is looking very nice. However, it is still a little sparse. You might need to add one more tree. I don't want to, but it looks like we're going to have to. So let me go back to my layer 2. Add up another images planes. Let me use this crazy looking tree here. Tab into edit mode. Oh wait, I need my material view. There's materials. Tab. Grab it on the Y. Pull it to the base of the tree. Tab out. And let's go to our compositor. And I'm not going to do all the fancy stuff with this one. I'm just going to make this... Actually, I will mess with the color a bit. Nah, the color looks good. Just add my transparent shader. And add my mix shader. And remember, transparent on top. And then our alpha value from our image to the factor. I don't know, man. That tree might be too bright. Looks awfully bright to me. I don't know. We'll leave it like it is. We'll see. Okay, back to layer 1. Click our mountain. And we need to add another new particle system. And we're going to grab our pine tree 001 and hit the 2. And let's change the seed to a 5, I guess. Really doesn't matter what number you choose. For the emitter geometry, this tree is awfully small, so I'm going to maybe just make this 1. Oh, you know what? I've been forgetting to change my object. That's why it looks weird. So down here in the render setting, where we have pine tree, we want to get rid of pine tree. And I think this one was called tree 0035. Aha! There's my problem. Sorry guys, my voice is cracking. And make sure we repopulate that density with our group. Aha! Okay, so now we need to go back to our second particle system that we made for that bush, because we forgot to do it there as well. I don't know why I didn't notice that. I guess the particle system, or the bush kind of looked a lot like the pine tree, so I just didn't notice it. So let me go down here, get rid of pine tree, and select bush. And if I want to double check it and make sure it looks okay. Whew, those are awfully small. Those are awfully small. Is that too big, like a 1.2? That might be about right. We might even need to raise the size. Oh yeah, another thing. Sometimes these pictures, they don't rotate the same. So double check your rotation. You might have to go in here and just tweak your rotation a bit to make sure that they're all facing the camera. Our other one looked pretty good. Let me check my pine trees again. Turn that one off, turn this one on. Oh yeah, our pine trees are too small. Let's make that a 1 for our emitter geometry. Alright, hopefully they're not too big. We don't want them to be too detailed. So, go ahead and turn these back on. Alright, we're looking pretty decent in here. Let me go to my rendered view. Whew, this is slowing down my computer. Okay, scratch that. Let's turn off some of these particle systems here. Alright, so I think pretty much everything is done. So I'm going to go ahead and show you my render for it. Let me go, I'll leave that at 50%, that's fine. Samples, I'm just going to do something low for you guys. Just do like 100 samples. No, I'll do 500. Okay. And down here in film, there's a little option for transparency. We need the transparent option. Turn transparency on. I'm running off of CPU, not GPU, because I have a crappy GPU that's not supported by Blender. So I'm going to turn my tiles down. If you want to mess with that yourself, you can do that. You probably know your settings for Blender better than I do. Most of this stuff is just kind of up to you and what computer system you have. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and give this a render, and I know you can't see my particle systems, but they will show up in the render. But once we come back, I will show you how to add in a sky background and do just a little bit of compositing to it. So let me go ahead and get this render started. Alright guys, so this is what I've come up with here. This is, it's decent. I'm not going to say it's spectacular. It's decent. I really would like to mess around with it some more, maybe take some of the trees off of this mountain back here. I'd kind of like to make the trees a little bit smaller, and I guess maybe change the color of them just a little bit. However, I don't have a ton of time to mess with little tweaks and tidbits. That's something that you guys can do. Just remember, you know, you can always go into your particle systems. You can always mess around with your stuff in there. Anyways, I'm just going to go on right into the compositing for you. So let me go to the compositor, go to my scene, click my use nodes. I'm going to click on backdrop so I can see what I'm doing. So add output viewer node. If I plug my image into my viewer, ta-da! And if for some reason your image is bigger than your your screen here, you can't see it, you can use V, and I think is it Alt V? Yeah, Alt V will bring it closer, V will put it further away. So anyways, the first thing we want to do is we want to add a sky to our background. So we're going to go ahead and add an input image. And let me open this up for you, find a good sky. Here's one. Yeah, that'll probably do. So when you're looking for your sky image, I just went ahead and picked a really quick one just to show you. But you want to make sure that you're careful that it matches again with the sun lamp that you've set. So if like my image is, the sun is coming in from the right side, so you're going to have a lot of, I guess, shadows on the left side of your clouds. You're not going to have a sun right in the middle of the background. That's not going to make the same shadows. It's going to make your shadows look wrong if you have the wrong sky background. So just be aware of that. You're also probably going to have to resize your image. So let's go ahead and add a distort scale. I'll plug that in. And then I want to add a color alpha over. And I don't know why I always put this on the bottom and it's supposed to be on the top. Always do that. Just used to it. So I'm going to plug this into the bottom, plug this into the top, and then plug that into my viewer. Ta-da! So obviously, like I said, it needs resized. This thing is ridiculous. So I'm just going to do it real quick by going to render size. Boom! That actually looks better than I thought it was going to. So that is our sky image. Pretty simple. Another thing that I want to do is I want to add a bit of depth to our mountains. Now this is something that can get really tricky, and it's something that I've seen a tutorial on this before that did it a different way than I do, and it was the most confusing tutorial I've ever seen in my entire life. I'm going to do it really simple. So let's see. Go to Vector, Normalize, and put your Z from your render layer into the Normalize. And then we need a Add Color, and I believe it's a Mix Color node. So let's mix this with the Normalize. I think Normalize needs to be on the top. No, Normalize needs to be on the bottom. Ha! So, let me get these out of the way for you for a second. If you want to take a look at this, this is what's called the Z-Pass. This gives you depth for your scene. Actually, if I remove this mix node, just put the Z-Pass into the viewer. No? Not going to do it for me? Anyways, basically what it does is things that are closer to the camera get black values, and things that are further away from the camera get white values. And what this allows you to do is mix these colors together to give you kind of a depth of field. It's not really a depth of field, more like a fog, glowy sort of thing. Multiply, I don't think that that's really working too much. A little bit. Not doing quite what I want. Maybe a screen. We'll turn this down to like a, let's try 0.5. That's too much. 0.2. Still a little much. Let's go 0.1. 0.05. Okay, there we go. 0.05 is looking about right. So really all that's doing is just kind of, it fades the background and it brings the foreground more like a prominent color, and it just gives it a bit of depth to the picture. It's something that you can add if you want. You don't have to. The tutorial I saw was like 100 different nodes doing crazy nonsense that I don't remember how to do properly. Anyways, this is the way that I do it, and it's pretty easy. It may not give you the sharpest of image as the other fancy tutorial did, but it does the trick, and that's exactly what we want. So let me go ahead and add a filter, and I'm gonna let's sharpen it. and you can see that that's like really, really crazy and embossed. I want just a little bit, 0.01. Just sharpen it a little bit, maybe a little bit more than that. Is that too much? Actually, that ain't bad. Is it? I don't know, there might be some black spots. Maybe a 0.03. Okay, that looks good. 0.03, give me just a little bit of a sharper edge, a little clearer looking images. Nothing too fancy. And I think the last thing that I'll do is mess with my colors. So let me add color and color balance. The big old node that I still don't fully understand myself, but I am going to make this a little orange. Let's lighten it up. No, darken it. Oh, microscopic movements change the entire picture, so be very careful. Now this one I'm going to make just a tiny tinge blue. I'll lighten that up just a bit. You can see my images changing drastically with just the smallest movements. And that's pretty much it. We have our image, and it's looking really good. Like I said, there's a couple of tweaks that I could do if I really wanted to, messing around with the trees, but for the most part we have very, very realistic looking mountains with sort of grassy trees all over the base of them, like a mountain usually has. So there you have it. This is the tutorial for the week. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any good results from it, go ahead and post it in my comments. If you guys have any ideas on what kind of tutorials you'd like to see next, go ahead and drop that in the comments as well. I do have new tutorials every week. I always have them every week. I can't guarantee the day that they're going to be on. I do have a full-time job. However, I do get at least one tutorial out every week. So if you enjoy this one, if you enjoy my other ones, then go ahead and give me a subscribe. Thank you guys for watching.